What is up, besties? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Scotty Holiday. I'm a queer creator and a huge Star Wars nerd, so if you're into either one of those things, please consider subscribing for more. Today we got chapter 19 of The Mandalorian Season 3, The Convert, and this episode really surprised me. Not only did we follow up with Din, Bo, and Grogu, but we also saw the beginnings of an interesting subplot with Dr. Pershing on Coruscant, and saw some familiar locations on the planet from other Star Wars media. But before I get into my review, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on Chapter 19. I'm putting out weekly reviews for each new episode of The Mandalorian Season 3, and you can check those out along with all my Mando content at the link in the cards and the description as well. Now, let's get into this review. Chapter 19 picks up from where we left off last episode, shortly after Bo rescued Din from the depths of the living waters and the Mythosaur encounter. Bo asks Din if he saw anything alive down there, but all he can recall is the deepness of the chasm. Bo mentions that the bombings from the Purge may have triggered seismic activities, which I believe will tie into the explanation for the existence of the Mythosaur itself. She doesn't mention anything about the encounter to Din, and I'm not sure whether she wants to keep it a secret or if she's still trying to process everything, but hopefully we'll get an answer later in the season. On their way back to Kalevala, the Gauntlet is ambushed by a squadron of TIE interceptors, and we get an amazing dogfight between Bo, Din, and the TIEs. I really love this sequence because not only did it look amazing in space, but also on Kalevala as well. I loved seeing the Gauntlet weaving in and out of the mountains. The environment just looked so great. I also really just love the Gauntlet's transformation into live action because it looks amazing as well. After they take out the TIEs, we see a nearby explosion over the mountain, and I immediately knew that the Imperials were bombing Bo's castle. This scene was really heartbreaking, but I feel like the emotions would have hit even harder if we could have seen Bo's reaction without her helmet on. Afterwards, Din spots a large fleet of TIEs headed in their direction and convinces Bo to make the jump to hyperspace with him, headed to some place the Imperials won't find. Bo makes a joke at the beginning about scugging off a bunch of Imperial warlords, but as more and more TIEs entered Kalevala's atmosphere, I think they may have been a part of an Imperial remnant. I've been theorizing that the remnant would have a base near or on Mandalore, so I hope we get to revisit that idea later in the season. From here, we take an unexpected trip to Coruscant, opening up with sweeping shots of the city, which look amazing and straight out of the prequel trilogy, but in a good way. The music in these scenes sounded very grand and majestic, evoking a feeling of wonder which works perfectly for how the planet is portrayed in the episode. We arrive at a familiar location, the galaxy's Opera House, first seen in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Inside, Dr. Pershing is giving a speech about the New Republic Amnesty Program, a program he's taking part in to rehabilitate former Imperials into the New Republic, and his research during his time with the Empire. He all but confirms Palpatine's eventual cloning in The Rise of Skywalker, saying, "My research was twisted into something cruel and inhumane, at the best of a desperate individual, intent on using cloning technology to secure more power for himself." On his way out from the event, Dr. Pershing is approached by many members of Coruscant's high society, saying things like, "It must be wonderful to work for a government that appreciates his contribution," calling him brave and an inspiration, which is honestly insane once we find out that the program has him working a desk job archiving old Imperial technology and documents. Even the floor leader tells Dr. Pershing he wonders why they have him on their floor when he's so experienced. Once back at Amnesty Housing, Dr. Pershing is called over by a group of former Imperials within the program, joining them for a drink and reminiscing on the little things they missed from their Imperial days, with Dr. Pershing specifically mentioning yellow travel biscuits. I think the most interesting part of this conversation is how the group introduces themselves by a position and designation, Dr. Pershing's being Amnesty Scientist L-52. We also learn the comms officer from Moff Gideon's cruiser, Elia Kane, or G-68, is among them as well, and she and Pershing recognize each other right away, with Kane even offering to take Dr. Pershing around to see the sights. Later that evening, Dr. Pershing gets a knock on his door, finding nothing but a case of the yellow travel biscuits he mentioned earlier on his doorstep. Later, we catch up with Kane and Dr. Pershing out at a very familiar location from the Clone Wars series, Coruscant's Monument Plaza. As they walk through the plaza, Kane gets Dr. Pershing to open up about his life post-Empire, telling her about his thoughts on his unfinished research and the good it could have done the galaxy despite the New Republic's disinterest. Kane tries to convince him to continue if he believes it will truly help the New Republic, but something about her encouragement felt a little off. This episode also explores Coruscant's lore, mentioning the planet's mountains, even visiting the peak of Ume. During his Amnesty Program check-in the next day, Dr. Pershing asked the droid officer if he would be allowed allowed to continue his research recreationally, but the droid declines, explaining that cloning and genetic engineering are specifically prohibited by the New Republic, which in turn causes him to confide in Elia about finding a way to continue in order to prove just how useful his research could be to the New Republic. Kane devises a plan to get the equipment, but Dr. Pershing declines since it involves breaking the rules of the Amnesty Program. The next day, Dr. Pershing has clearly thought more about continuing his research, even asking to access the Imperial tech he's archiving for work that's coded to be destroyed. But after being denied again and his frustrations growing with the New Republic, he goes to Elia's home to ask for her help in getting a mobile lab station after all. Throughout these scenes, we also see him snacking on the yellow Imperial travel biscuits throughout, and I have to wonder if they're almost acting as a reminder to him of how things used to be. In the following scenes, as Dr. Pershing gets ready to meet with Elia, the music takes a dark turn, harkening back to the music during the infamous Darth Plagueis the Wise scene, and Snoke's theme with low droning sounds. Though Dr. Pershing isn't about to commit an act of the dark side, this part of the episode marks a turning point for the character, and the accompanying music acts almost as a bad omen. Once they meet up, Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane travel to a train station and sneak onto the train headed towards Coruscant's disposal yards. During the ride, a group of droids checking tickets enters the car, causing Dr. Pershing and Elia to car hop until they reach the end of the train, forcing them to jump off in order not to get caught. We also find out that this is not Elia's first time sneaking out of the perimeter as well, which made me question the character and her overall intentions. From here, they break into a decommissioned Star Destroyer, and once inside, make their way for the lab for Dr. Pershing to retrieve the equipment he requires for his research. It was fun to see them exploring the decommissioned destroyer, but also a bit haunting. As they attempt to make their way out of the ship with the supplies, Dr. Pershing and Elia start to hear noises and see lights coming from the nearby corridors, signaling that they're not the only ones inside the vessel. Shortly after they get back outside, they're caught by the Coruscant police, and we even get to see a live-action debut of the LAAT Ellie Patrol gunship. While Dr. Pershing is arrested, the police allow Elia Kane to walk off with the case of supplies, basically ignoring her as if she wasn't even there. I had no idea what to make of this moment, but eventually we learned that she reported Pershing to the Amnesty Program, saying that he relapsed. Dr. Pershing wakes up in a medical facility, strapped to a table, about to undergo a rehabilitation treatment against his will from what the Mon Cala refers to as a 602 mitigator, which is basically just a mind flayer used to help soothe select traumatic memories. Elia Kane watches from the observation room as Dr. Pershing insists the whole ordeal was a setup by Kane, but they go ahead with the treatment anyway. We get an interesting exchange between the Twi'lek attendant and Elia, thanking her for bringing Dr. Pershing in, saying she did the right thing and for every failure, there's a success like her to the rehabilitation program. It makes me wonder if the New Republic is trying to wipe select portions of the former Imperial's memories, hence the need for the position and designation codes they're all given. I wonder if Dr. Pershing was remembering too much and that's why Elia reported him. She's also the only person in the program to introduce herself by her real first and last name, so I'm not sure if she's just playing along or what. Once the medical staff leaves the room, Elia turns the dial for the mitigator on maximum voltage, and I can only imagine how this will affect Dr. Pershing afterwards. He says the flare was used to fry someone's mind, so who knows what or if he'll remember anything afterwards. She could also be working there undercover for Gideon and trying to erase the knowledge of Dr. Pershing's research from his own mind in order for it to not get in the hands of the New Republic, but we'll just have to wait and see. In the final scenes of the episode, we catch up with Din, Bo, and Grogu as they arrive on the unnamed planet where the Children of the Watch are hiding out. Of course, Din tells her that keeping her helmet on will make things go smoother, and they make their way to the front of the cave, confronted by Paz Vizsla. Din informs him that he's been to the mines of Mandalore and Living Waters, but Paz says it's impossible since the mines collapsed in the Purge. Din surprisingly speaks up, telling Paz and all the other Children of the Watch that the stories of Mandalore's curse are lies meant to keep them in exile, and from here, he and Bo go to meet with the armorer. Din presents her a vial of water from the Living Waters as proof of his atonement, and she confirms it, dubbing not just Din redeemed, but Bo-Katan as well, inviting her to join their covert. Now, ultimately, I don't think things will last long between Bo and the Children of the Watch, and to be completely honest, I don't want her to be a part of their covert. Bo doesn't actually repeat "this is the way" at the end of the episode either, so hopefully that's a sign of things to come. I'm honestly gonna be hella disappointed if she doesn't take her helmet off again in this season, especially because we just got that great new wig. I think Bo's just going through the motions, doing whatever she needs to do to be okay for the time being since leaving Kalevala. I think we'll eventually see a clash between her and the Armorer, and I'm dying to see a fight between them. I feel like it's only a matter of time. So what did you think of Chapter 19, and where do you think the story will go from here? Do you think Bo will actually remain a part of the Children of the Watch? Let me know in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter so we can chat more about it together. Please consider checking out all my Mandalorian videos at the link in the description and on the end screen of this video as well. I really appreciate all of your support. To keep up with all my Star Wars content, make sure to subscribe and consider following me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Scotty Holiday SW for all my latest updates. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.